Have you ever felt like you were losing yourself in a relationship? Like the more you tried to please the other person, the more hurt, exhausted, and empty you became. You might be entangled in a relationship with a narcissist and not even realize that your mind is being controlled step by step. They don't need chains. They don't need prison walls. They use words, emotions, and invisible tactics to control your thoughts, your behavior, and even your feelings. You're no longer living for yourself. You're living in a trance they created, and you might even feel guilty for wanting to break free. In today's video, I'll expose the subtle, calculated moves narcissists use to gain full control over you. From the sweet words at the beginning, to making you doubt yourself, slowly taking your freedom, and eventually making you fully dependent on them. This isn't just theory, it's a harsh reality that millions of people have lived through. And if you've ever felt confused, hurt, or manipulated in a relationship, watch this video all the way through because you deserve to understand the truth, and most of all, you deserve to heal. Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any videos in this series on narcissistic psychology and the recovery journey. We're here to learn, to grow stronger, and to make sure we never fall into that trap again. 1. Baiting. Baiting is one of the first and most subtle tactics narcissists use to begin their process of mental control. They don't reveal their toxicity right away. In fact, they often start with charm, attention, and gentleness, small gestures, but full of intention. They show you an ideal version of themselves, the perfect partner, the soul mate, the emotional twin flame. They listen to you, make you laugh, make you feel seen, and they never give too much, just enough to spark your hope. That just enough is the hook. Once you start to feel comforted, safe, or even loved by them, your brain begins to release dopamine, the chemical tied to reward and pleasure. But just when you begin to want more, to reach out for more affection or a promise, they suddenly pull away. That withdrawal is not random. It's calculated. They leave you suspended in emotional limbo, unsure of what happened, confused why someone so sweet just went cold. You start to ask yourself, did I do something wrong? You begin to chase them, trying to bring back that early attention, that early sweetness. And in doing so, you don't even realize that you've become the one pursuing just like they wanted. They don't have to give you real love. All they need to offer are hints of love, promises of a future, glimpses of happiness that make you think it's just around the corner. But it never arrives. They'll keep tossing you little signs, a message, a gentle look, a vague apology, a random gesture that seems to show they care. But it's all just bait. This tactic is powerful because it uses your own emotions and beliefs against you. You think, they were good to me once, surely they still are, maybe they're just going through something. You start making excuses, rationalizing for them, and in doing so you sink deeper into their manipulation. Your mind becomes conditioned to respond to these small, unpredictable rewards. The hallmark of this tactic is emotional instability. Everything is almost amazing but never truly is. It's like trying to touch water, but the water keeps slipping further away. And what makes it even more dangerous is that you've already invested. You've given them your time, emotions, even your trust, so you don't want to let go. Your mind tells you just a little more effort and it'll work. But the stability never comes, and that's when you're trapped. The narcissist uses your hope to maintain control. They give very little and take so much. They consume your emotional energy, your time, your mental space, all while offering only vague, intentional crumbs to keep you attached. They don't need grand gestures because you're already filling in the blanks they leave behind with your own imagination, expectations, and desire for love. The most dangerous part of baiting is that it doesn't look like abuse. It looks like someone who's busy, someone who's struggling, someone who once loved you and just needs time. But in reality, they never planned on building anything lasting. They are simply using you as emotional supply, and they'll keep doing so until you are completely drained. 2. Gaslighting. Gaslighting is one of the most dangerous forms of psychological manipulation narcissists use to control you because it doesn't directly target your behavior. Instead, it infiltrates your perception, eroding the very foundation of your inner trust. It all starts with small denials. I never said that. You're just imagining things. Why are you being so sensitive? At first glance, these statements might seem harmless, maybe even just simple misunderstandings. But when these moments happen repeatedly, over time, you begin to doubt your own memory. You clearly remember them making a promise. You remember the sting of their insult. But when you bring it up, they completely deny it, sometimes even reacting with shock or anger that you would accuse them of something they never did. And because you don't have concrete proof, no recording, no screenshots, no witnesses, you slowly start to believe maybe you really did get it wrong. Gaslighting doesn't just make you doubt specific memories. It makes you lose trust in yourself entirely. Whenever you react emotionally, they shut it down. You're overreacting. I was just joking. You always make things worse than they are. And so, you begin to feel like your feelings aren't valid. You're no longer sure what's real and what's imagined. You start turning to the very person manipulating you for clarity and validation. That's when they gain full control over your reality. They decide what's true. They determine when you're allowed to be hurt, when your feelings are reasonable, and when they're not. You become dependent on their version of events, not because you're weak, but because you've been led into a world where you're always wrong, always too sensitive, always needing to apologize for how you feel. Gaslighting doesn't hit all at once. It seeps in slowly, like water through stone. You may have once been confident, self-aware, and grounded, but after months or years with a narcissist, you no longer trust your own mind, your memory, or your instincts. You live in fog, hesitation, and self-doubt. Every time you try to stand up for yourself, a voice inside whispers, "What if I'm the one who's wrong?" And that's when they have you. When you no longer believe in yourself, you lose the ability to leave because you don't know what's real anymore. Every emotion must be filtered through them, and if they say it's irrational, you dismiss it. This is no longer a relationship, it's a psychological battlefield where you're slowly reshaped into someone they can manipulate, dominate, and drain. Gaslighting doesn't just destroy your trust in others. It destroys your trust in yourself. And once that's gone, they don't need chains or cages. They've already taken the one thing you used to rely on most, your own mind. 3. Provocation. Provocation is a subtle yet brutal psychological tactic narcissists use to push you to the edge and then turn your reaction into evidence that you're the one who's out of control. Their goal isn't to resolve conflict or engage in honest communication. Their goal is to provoke a strong emotional reaction and then play the perfect victim once you break. They do this by repeatedly violating your boundaries, from minor things like ignoring messages, showing up late, mocking your opinions, to more severe behaviors like snooping through your phone, spreading rumors behind your back, cheating, or verbally attacking you. They might bring up painful memories, poke at your insecurities, the very things you once confided in them, all with the intent of getting a rise out of you. They want to see you yell, cry, lose your temper, even throw things. And the moment you react, they step back and act shocked. Why are you acting like this? I don't even know what's going on anymore. Are you crazy? They completely erase what they just did and focus only on your reaction. That one outburst becomes their weapon. They might record it, screenshot messages, or run around telling others how unstable or toxic you are. And slowly they begin to paint a narrative where you are the problem, not them. This is classic role reversal. They're the abuser, but you become the one seen as dangerous. They push you to the edge, but only the moment you crack gets remembered and used against you. Any wrongdoing on their part gets dismissed or spun as a reasonable act that you overreacted to. When this happens repeatedly, you not only lose emotional control, you start to doubt yourself. Am I being too sensitive? Maybe I am unstable. What if I'm the real problem in this relationship? And once again, you fall into the trap of gaslighting. Provocation traps you in a constant state of emotional tension. You never know when the next attack will come or what small misstep will set them off. You become hyper-aware, walking on eggshells, trying to avoid saying or doing the wrong thing. But they're the ones controlling the game, not you. The cruelty of this tactic lies in the fact that they force you to react, then punish you for reacting. They make you snap, then shame you for snapping. They tear you down in front of others, then use your isolation as another means of control. They get to wear the mask of the innocent one, while you carry the label of the unstable partner. This isn't normal conflict. This is a calculated strategy to break you from within, to make you question your emotions, your responses, your very sense of self, until you're too afraid to speak up ever again. 4. Emotional invalidation. Emotional invalidation is a subtle yet powerful weapon narcissists use to erase your feelings, thoughts, and legitimate needs, all without having to argue or openly confront you. They don't need to yell or harshly criticize. Instead, they pretend not to understand, act like you're overreacting, or treat everything you say as unimportant. When you tell them that their behavior hurts you, they don't apologize, and they don't take responsibility. Instead, they respond with cold, dismissive remarks like, "Oh, come on, it's not that serious." You're overthinking things again. You always blow everything out of proportion. These comments, repeated over time, chip away at your self-worth. You start to believe that your emotions are irrational, weak, or not worth anyone's attention. And when your feelings are invalidated long enough, you begin to lose connection with yourself. The frightening part is, they do understand the impact of their behavior. They know exactly how their words and actions hurt you, but they refuse to acknowledge it because admitting it would mean taking responsibility. And responsibility is something narcissists avoid at all costs. Instead of apologizing or changing, they'll play dumb. I didn't know that upset you. I was just joking. You always make a big deal out of everything. They choose not to understand, not because they're incapable, but because not understanding allows them to keep doing harm without being held accountable. Over time, this kind of dismissal leads you to stop expressing your real emotions. You shrink. Every time you want to speak up about something that's hurting you, you begin to second-guess yourself. Am I overreacting again? Will they get annoyed if I bring this up? Maybe I should just keep quiet. And that's exactly what they want for you to stay quiet, doubt yourself, and surrender your voice. They may even flip the situation to blame you for having emotions. You're so negative. You complain too much. No one can live with someone like you. These statements make you feel ashamed of your valid emotional responses, leading you to believe that you are the problem when in fact, you're simply reacting to being hurt. When emotional invalidation becomes a pattern in the relationship, you don't just feel lonely, you feel invisible in your own life. You slowly disappear from the story, becoming someone who constantly adjusts, suppresses and silences themselves just to keep the peace with someone who is hurting you. This isn't a communication issue or a misunderstanding. This is a deliberate control tactic, one designed to make you believe your emotions are the problem, not their behavior. And through that, they maintain full control without ever having to take responsibility. 5. Intermittent reinforcement. This is one of the most psychologically addictive and manipulative tactics. Narcissists use a technique well studied in behavioral psychology, similar to how casinos condition the brain. When rewards come randomly and unpredictably, people become even more hooked and find it harder to walk away. Narcissists don't treat you badly all the time. They know that if the abuse were constant, you'd leave. Instead, they alternate between punishment and reward, keeping you constantly hoping that the good times will come back. After periods of hurtful behavior, the insults, the silent treatment, the betrayal, they might suddenly return with a compliment, a gift, a sweet evening, or simply act kind again. You feel relieved. You think finally they're changing. But soon after, they turn cold again without warning or explanation. This creates an emotional roller coaster filled with confusion and false hope. You never know when they'll be kind or when they'll punish you. So you start seeking their approval, trying harder, giving more, believing that if you do everything right, they'll go back to being loving. This is exactly how emotional addiction is formed. Your brain becomes wired to chase those fleeting moments of validation like a gambler pulling a slot machine lever, hoping the next spin will be the win. And the more it doesn't come, the more invested you become because you think, I've come this far, I can't give up now. The cruelty of this tactic is that love becomes a reward, and you have to earn it. Kindness is no longer organic, it's granted when it suits them, and you become emotionally dependent. Every time they're nice, you feel relieved, even euphoric, not realizing that you're being manipulated by the very person who's hurting you. Once you've adjusted to this cycle, you lose perspective on just how damaging it really is. You begin excusing the abuse. They're not always like this, they can be so sweet sometimes. But those sweet moments are part of the trap. That's why you can't leave. You're addicted to the illusion, the hope that if you just give a little more, you'll finally be loved. In reality, the more you give, the less you receive. Their affection is only enough to keep you from leaving, never enough to heal you. And that keeps you spinning in emotional chaos, unable to rest, unable to feel safe, unable to break free. Intermittent reinforcement isn't just erratic behavior, it's a deliberate strategy to create emotional dependence, to keep you unsure of where you stand, and to maintain their power without having to constantly control you through force or threats. 6. Isolation. Isolation is a highly strategic tactic narcissists use to gain total control over you. Unlike other forms of manipulation that play out between two people, isolation targets all the relationships around you. Their goal is simple: make sure you only have them to rely on, so they can manipulate and dominate you without any outside interference. They often begin by bad-mouthing others to you. Your friend doesn't really care about you. Your sibling is selfish, they only think about themselves. They plant seeds of doubt, exaggerate minor conflicts, and over time you start losing trust in the people you were once close to. If this approach doesn't work, they flip the script and badmouth you to others. She's just overly emotional lately. He's blowing everything out of proportion. Before you know it, your friends start pulling away, and you don't even understand why, but it's the result of a carefully executed smear campaign. One by one, your relationships with family, friends, and co-workers begin to fall apart. You start to feel misunderstood, isolated, and like no one is truly on your side. And that's when they step in as the only one who stayed, the only person who gets you. But that role wasn't earned out of love, it was engineered through manipulation, because they need you to be isolated in order to control you more easily. This isolation doesn't always look obvious. Sometimes it hides behind the mask of love or protection. I don't think you should hang out with them, they're bad for you. You don't need anyone else, you have me. What seems romantic at first eventually becomes an unspoken rule. You slowly cut people out of your life to keep the peace. Once you're fully isolated, the damage isn't just the loss of your support network, it's the loss of a reality check. There's no one left to remind you that their behavior is wrong. No one to reflect the truth back to you. No one to help you see how abnormal the relationship has become. And in that silence, they gain full control over what's right or wrong, true or false, acceptable or unacceptable in your world. In this state, you're more vulnerable to all their other tactics. You have no one to confide in, no one to challenge their narrative. It's just you and them and the distorted reality they've created. It becomes the perfect environment for gaslighting, blame shifting, guilt tripping, and more. The more isolated you are, the weaker you feel. You begin to believe that you're incapable of doing things on your own. And at that point, they become your center, the one who breaks you down, and then poses as the only one left who cares. 7. Ghosting. Ghosting, the act of suddenly disappearing, is one of the coldest and most brutal psychological tactics narcissists use. They don't just leave. They vanish at the exact moment you need them most, your birthday, holidays, when you're sick, or right after an unresolved argument. And they don't give you any warning, explanation, or closure, just silence, emptiness. This isn't impulsive. It's not because they're too busy. It's a calculated move, deliberately designed to hurt you, throw you into panic, and make you feel completely unanchored. They know you're checking your phone. They know you're waiting for that message or call. And they intentionally stay silent, planting deep feelings of rejection, abandonment, and worthlessness. This kind of disappearance shakes your sense of security and self-worth to the core. You start wondering, what did I do wrong? Why did they leave me? Am I not good enough? But the truth is, they didn't leave because you did something wrong. They left to take back control. It's their way of making you chase them, fear losing them, and believe they're the only one who can save you from the loneliness they created. Ghosting is also used as a form of punishment. Maybe you stood up for yourself. Maybe you expressed a boundary. Maybe you simply asked to be treated better. Instead of listening, they choose to disappear, sending the message, "No one tells me what to do. If you try, you lose me." When they return, and they often do, they act like nothing happened. You might get a casual, "Hey, long time no talk," or "Just thinking about you." And you, after waiting in silence for so long, might feel relieved, even happy they're back, even though they're the one who abandoned you without a word. And so the cycle begins again. They reel you back in with a little attention, a promise, a temporary kindness, just enough to reset your role as the one who waits, hopes, and constantly proves your worth to stay in their life. Ghosting isn't just irresponsible, it's a powerful manipulation tool because it makes you associate love with emotional instability. It teaches you that, to keep someone, you must stay quiet, endure pain, and always be ready to forgive when they decide to return. In reality, you're trapped in a cycle of emotional dependency where they control everything, including when you're loved and when you're discarded. We often think of control as something visible, yelling, force, or clear restrictions. But in a relationship with a narcissist, control doesn't come through shouting. It comes through silence, through hugs followed by coldness, through promises followed by absence, through the moments you find yourself apologizing just for having emotions. Tactics like baiting, gaslighting, provocation, emotional invalidation, intermittent reinforcement, isolation, and ghosting are not random acts. They are a calculated sequence of psychological strategies designed for one purpose: to make you doubt yourself, lose touch with reality, and become dependent on the very person who is hurting you. The truth is, Emotional control is far more dangerous than physical force because it makes you believe you're still in love, that you're still being loved, when in reality, you're trapped in an invisible prison. Recognizing these signs isn't weakness. It's the first step in seeing clearly what's love and what's manipulation. And only when you can call these patterns by their real names can you begin to reclaim your mind, your emotions, and your life.